Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Dawg House Podcast. On today's show, we continue our part two conversation with Big Dawg Brett from YouTube as he gives his SEC championship predictions and also college football playoff predictions. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. That'll really help us out. Brett, wanted to get your thoughts because everybody's making early predictions. Wanted to get your four playoff team predictions. I know it's very early on in the season. We're about to go into team or week one here, so everybody's making predictions. So might as well ask you.
So this is always a tough one, right? Because people are so passionate about so many things. So there's a emphasized importance on pretty much being able to go undefeated. I'm gonna throw some crazy stuff out there. Georgia, that's really crazy to pick that one, right?
Go Dogs!
Who'd have guessed that one, right? My second choice is Michigan. My third choice, again, very crazy suggestion here, Ohio State. And nobody's going to see this guy coming. Nobody's going to see these guys coming. These guys are going to come out of nowhere. And at the end of the season, you're going to go, way back week one, I watched this podcast. It had Trey on it, and it had Big Dawg Brett. And one of those guys said Utah.
Wow.
And it's going to be Big Dawg Brett's going to be having told you so that it was Utah. I think Utah gets it figured out this time. I think that Oregon's going to have an outstanding year. I think Oregon's going to be highly ranked, highly rated, and I think Utah's going to beat them. And I think Utah's pretty much going to go undefeated in that conference. So I think an undefeated Pac-12 in Utah. Georgia is going to sail through. I think LSU may take their second loss when they play Georgia, so that'll kick them out. I think that Ohio State and Michigan they're gonna duplicate what they did last year, which is one's gonna win during the regular season and the other one's gonna win during the championship game, and so they're gonna put both of those teams in, and then you got to make a decision between a two-loss LSU and Alabama, who has at least two losses. Then you're looking at Pitt's probably going to have two losses. Oregon's going to have one. And then you're going to have Utah undefeated. And from what we've seen in years past, I think the College Football Playoff Committee is basically said that they like undefeated teams. Utah I think, won their conference the past 2 years in a row. And I think they very well could win that conference again this year. And I think if they go undefeated, that it's going to be very difficult to keep those guys out. And Utah is a very physical football team. Like Utah is, they're not slouches. And one of the interesting things is that Utah has a pretty decent schedule ahead of them. They have a good strength of schedule. So they're going to start out by playing Florida, which doesn't necessarily have a big strength of schedule, but it's an SEC opponent. So it gives them a little bit of a litmus test into the SEC. I think they're going to just beat the fire out of Florida. Now they may go out and lose to Florida right out of the gate, and that throws the whole thing out of the water. But I think they're going to beat Florida. A few weeks in, 4 or 5 weeks in, they play Oregon State, that's currently ranked. Then they got to play USC, who everybody thinks is really good, but USC doesn't know how to play defense. Utah does, and then they play Oregon. I think Oregon is a really good football team. I think Dan Lanning's doing a great job out there, but I think Utah is just going to be too physical for them. And then they turn around and play number 10 Washington. If you look at their strength of schedule, this is an excellent schedule to make that fight of, hey, we want to play with the big boys. So last year they beat number 4 USC. They lost to Florida at the beginning of the season. I think they get that game back. They beat number 7 USC. And then they beat USC again at the end of the year. So I think these guys, they get a few of those kinks figured out. I think they win. They only lost to Oregon last year by 3 points. So I really think Utah Utes could be in the running for this thing. So I'm gonna pick the Utah Utes.
I like that pick. I will say on that one, they need to get their quarterbacks back because I think they're potentially talking about against Florida. That's why that line went down. I think they're on their third string, but there's somehow they can get Cam Rising or backup quarterback to play. They're going to be dangerous this year. And I like them beating USC again just because USC just gave up 28 to San Jose State.
Yeah.
I think Bear Alexander's going to regret not staying at Georgia.
I hope he does. I
thing.
hope he regrets it every dad blame day.
Exactly.
I think when you have an opportunity to play for a back-to-back national championship team and then you choose to go somewhere else because you think that's going to be better for you, and then I won't say get embarrassed, but they got embarrassed because they look like hot garbage in my opinion. I would say, you better make sure that you know what you're talking about if you're going to jump out there and say something like that. When you're looking at leaving the powerhouse in the SEC, which you pretty much had. And by the way, I'm going to throw this out there for you Georgia fans and for anybody else for that matter. There is really, other than the quarterback position, there is really no such thing as a starting quarterback at UGA. I mean, a starting position at UGA. You're not a starter. Get that out of your head. You're not a starter because Georgia rotates so much. Mm-hmm. The only difference is that you play the first set of downs. The next set of downs, somebody else is going in. And those guys are going to play for a series. It's just a rotation. That's really all it is. So if you want to call yourself a starter, that's fine. But when you look at how much and how often UGA rotates players in and out, it's hard to say that, oh, he's the starter. Well, you would typically say that on teams where there's a massive drop-off when you take out the starters. Go look at the Georgia TCU game, and you will see there was very little difference between Georgia's starters and their second and even third string. So it's going to be very interesting. Now, I do want to go back to the Utah Utes thing about the quarterback position real quick. So I have seen them say that they're going to start Cam Rising, and then I've also seen them say that they're going to start with Nate Johnson. I don't know if you've seen that.
I just heard Utah's a little banged up at QB, so yeah, could be.
It's Florida, so I don't think it'll be a problem, no matter which quarterback they put in. Mm-hmm. I think that with the way that the Utah Utes play, I mean, this team is very, very physical, very, very physical. They average, and if I told you this off the cuff, you wouldn't think about this. You'd be like, if I told you this number, you'd be like, no way. There's no way that's right. The Utah Utes average 39 points a game.
Oh,
that's what they average, 39 points a game. So, first of all, can Florida handle a team that averages 39 points a game? I don't know that they can. When I look at that, I mean,
yeah.
If you look at the efficiency of this team, they're extremely efficient. Their conversion rate on third down is 50%. That's pretty darn good. So I don't know if Florida is going to be able to deal with that caliber of defense. Number one, I know they don't do well when they play Georgia, but if you go in and you actually look at their stats, they average of allowing 21 points a game, and they average almost double that themselves. This is going to be one of the toughest teams that Florida plays all season, regardless of who the quarterback is.
Right.
But that's just me. I'm rattling on. So.
Yeah, I think I was looking at here. I think it's right as of now, ESPN, Utah -6.5. But I definitely like your points.
Well, here's the thing I'd say: if ESPN knew what they were talking about, they would have picked Georgia to win the SEC this year.
I did hear that. I think that's good bulletin board material for Kirby.
Hey, I love it.
All those guys, yeah.
So, I think earlier when we talked, there was something else that you wanted to go over. Let me see what it was here. SEC championship prediction.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So I think everybody is under the assumption that it's going to be Georgia versus LSU. And I feel like personally, by the time Georgia gets to this part of the season, you're going to see a Georgia team that has had plenty of opportunity to pull themselves into a well-oiled machine, right? So Georgia's schedule is just about the easiest in the country, just because you can't put Georgia on the schedule, you know. But Georgia plays Georgia every practice. So, you know, the Georgia should be undefeated. If Georgia loses to Ole Miss, it'll be a little bit of a surprise. Georgia's secondary is actually a little more elite than what people realize. And I also think Georgia's got Tennessee's hurry-up offense figured out. But I think that going into that game, Carson Beck is going to be very comfortable. He's going to be very smooth. He's going to be very well prepared for this game. I mean, other than Tennessee and Ole Miss, the only game you got to look for is the LSU game. That's it. So I think Georgia goes in and win that game. Might not be as good as it was last year with 50 points on the board. It may be more like 42-28 or something like that, but it'll still be a solid victory for the Dogs.
I completely agree. That's my picks. How about Alabama, real quick? You thinking 2 losses potentially, and who you think they lose to? If you think?
Oh, I'm sorry, you said potentially.
Huh.
Yeah, potentially they lose 4.
Wow.
Now that's gonna upset a lot of Alabama fans. And guys, I'm sorry,
The Gumps.
man, you got to look at what happened last year, man. There was multiple games last year. Shoulda, coulda, woulda lost. Really shoulda, coulda, woulda lost. And this is not the dynamic team that we've seen in the past from Alabama, right? So shoulda lost the Texas game. There's no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. Realistically, could have lost Texas A&M. Did lose the LSU game. Only won Ole Miss by 6 points. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to look at last year's schedule and go, guys, you know, you could have lost 4 games last year. Should have lost 3. And you had Bryce Young as a Heisman quarterback, and you had Jamar Gibbs. You just don't have that same level of quality returning. I mean, for goodness sake, Nick Saban had to go into the transfer portal after the spring game and bring in a quarterback. That's right. I can't name the last time that's ever happened at any top 5 opponent school. When I say top 5 opponent, I mean teams that are consistently ranked in the top 5, you know, when the season starts and when the season ends, or when the season ends, however you want to say it. But, you know, I'm looking at, you guys got a quarterback, first year, you got a brand new offensive coordinator, I think a brand new defensive coordinator. And you're now going to go against an experienced LSU team. I'm looking at this schedule and I'm going, okay, I think you're probably going to lose to Texas. I think Texas is going to be super PO'd. I think you're definitely going to lose to LSU. So that's 2 games right there. I think you could potentially lose to Tennessee. You could potentially lose to Texas A&M. You could potentially lose to Ole Miss. You could potentially lose 5 games here. Can you imagine what would happen to the state of Alabama if they went 7-5?
Meltdown.
People would drop dead of heart attacks.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, I'll be the first to tell you, Nick Saban is the greatest to ever do it. He's the greatest of all time. He is the GOAT. If anybody can pull it off, he can. But even though Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, and you can look at that any way you want to. We can sit down on paper and I can show you that too. Even though Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, he can't dunk a 20-foot goal. He may be the greatest, but there's some things you just can't overcome. And I think that you look at brand new quarterback, you look at brand new offensive coordinator, brand new defensive coordinator, and a very tough schedule here. I mean, they play 5 opponents that's ranked in the top 25 at this moment. And it's possible that Kentucky could be ranked when they play them as well. So to me, you know, this is an Alabama team that could easily have 4 losses. So
that'd be a great meltdown.
It would be epic.
And that means if that happens, they're going to start watching a whole lot of NASCAR really early, right?
NASCAR is back.
It is. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, Big Dawg Brett. Wanted to see how can we follow you on the socials I got your YouTube channel coming.
Well, I appreciate that. So if you guys want to interact with me, the easiest way to interact with me is through YouTube. You can find me on Facebook. I don't really do much on Instagram. I don't really do much on I do some stuff on Twitter. So if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, that's fine. But honestly, I interact with the YouTube comment section very heavily. Very rarely will you find a comment on any of my videos that I haven't noticed. And if I see your comment, unless it's just something absolutely ridiculous, I'm going to put a heart on it.
Yeah.
You're going to see that I interact with you. A lot of times I'll respond, especially in the off season. But yeah, if you guys have a question or a comment, go to one of my channels. I mean, go to my channel, go to one of my videos and leave a comment. Say, hey, we saw you over with Trey and just wanted to touch base. Hey, that's great. Pretty soon here, we're going to have Trey on our show and we'll see if we can help him out a little bit and go from there. So I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. And make sure and subscribe to Big Dawg Brett, road to 10,000 for him. That'd be great.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll have another each week. We're going to try to have another Dawg House podcast, brand new episode, brand new content. Please like, subscribe,
Absolutely.
and follow if you're still with us. Go
Thanks for
Dogs,
having me.
and we'll see you on down the road.
Go Dogs.
Thanks so much.